Hello humans, and welcome to EvilCraft, the Beginner's Guide. Now, I know there's probably been a million and one guides all around the universe of YouTube, but when I was doing research for EvilCraft for my own All the Mods 10 series, I was really struggling on figuring out how it all worked. Now I'm here, having figured it out, to help you all. So let's jump on in. Boom. Alright, first things first is you gotta get a dark gem. These are pretty simple. All you need is to either A, search the world for a chest that has it in it, or you can go down through the mines and find them just crawling around down there in the different ore veins. After you find the dark gem, I highly recommend you go with the blood extractor next. These bad boys are pretty simple. They just need some spikes, some glass, and it could be stained glass as well, and a dark gem. And every time you say there's a pig right here, every time you kill said pig, or any zombie, creeper, anything like that, the blood will fill your blood extractor, and then you can put that to use in a blood infuser. Now, this blood infuser is a little hard to get, and that's only because you have to kill like a bunch of mobs to get the blood infusion core. It's a little redundant how you get a dark power gem, because you need one to make a blood infusion core, but you need a blood infusion core to make the blood infuser that you use to make a dark power gem. It's cyclical. I'll show you. So, blood infuser, right? Just some cobblestone, blood infusion core, you click that, you need a dark power gem. How do you get the dark power gem? Well, you could use, a gem block of dark power gems if you had it, but you have to put a dark gem through the blood infuser. So you're probably asking me, Watson, how am I supposed to get a dark power gem if I need a blood infuser to make one, but I need the blood infusion core to make the dark power gem? There's a solution, I promise you. All you gotta do is put 5 buckets down of blood and throw in a dark gem, and boom! That infuses the dark gem to become a dark power gem. Then you use that with the hardened blood shards to make the blood infusion core. Now, Watson, how on earth am I supposed to get the hardened blood shards? We haven't covered that in class yet. Well, my star pupils, it really is as simple as a drying basin. This bad boy. And this isn't cyclical at all. All you need is some logs. I would use oak because they're cheap and super easy to find. Some black dye, which you can easily get from squids, and some irons that you can either mine for, or you can set up an iron farm. But yeah, you just put all that stuff together, make a drying bin, then you throw some blood from the blood extractor into the drying basin, and this will give you the hardened blood you need. It takes 20 seconds, so it is a little bit, does take a little bit, but when you do get that hardened blood, then you can grab the furnace, put some hardened blood in there, and then because you use the drying basin, that gives you a guaranteed 9 shards. See? And you only need 8 of them for the infusion core. And then as for the blood infuser, it can take up to 10 buckets right here. I personally would put a dark tank of blood on top if you can afford the blood, so that way you don't have to keep going back and forth, killing a bunch of mobs, putting it into the infuser, killing a bunch of mobs, putting it into the infuser. You can just kind of grab from there, and then you can carry a dark tank around with you, so that way when your blood extractor fills up, you can just put it into the dark tank. Or, if you have a mob farm, then you can just keep a dark tank near the blood farm and do the same basic thing. One extractor or more. You can hold more than one extractor. When I was doing the All the Mods 10 series, I had, I think, 28 extractors at one point that I was taking back and forth between the dark tanks. And dark tanks aren't, like, hard to make. The 16 buckets, which is the smallest dark tank you can make, is simply 2 dark gems, 2 iron ingots, and a block of glass. And then you just fill it up with some blood. Now, when you're in the blood infuser, there will come a time where you want it to move faster. Because, like, dark blood gems take 10 seconds. But Dusted Bowl of Promises turning into a Bowl of Promises is 50 seconds. And then later on, when you're making blood orbs, that's 150 seconds. And 10,000 blood. Well, millibuckets, but still, that's the whole container of the original blood infuser. So you're going to need some upgrades. So over here, you are going to find some blood infuser upgrades. Now, I didn't space this out well, but over here is the empty bowl of promises. You're just taking 3 dark power gems and making it into said bowl. And then you take the bowl and some crushed dark gems, not dark power gems, dark gems, and be creating the Dusted Bowl of Promises. For every upgrade that you need, you will need a Dusted Bowl of Promises. So what you need to do is take a Dusted Bowl of Promises, throw it into the blood infuser, and again, this is going to take a while. This is like 50 seconds for just tier 0. And that becomes a Bowl of Promises tier 0. And that Bowl of Promises you can use on the Promise of Tenacity 1, the Promise of Velocity, and the Promise of Productivity. Next up is an Iron Promise Acceptor. All you gotta do for that is just shove a block of iron in the blood infuser for 25 seconds with a full blood infuser, and it becomes an Iron Promise Acceptor. And putting the Bowl of Promises tier 0 with the Iron Promise Acceptor and a Spider Eye, of course, you make the Promise of Tenacity 1. What the Promise of Tenacity does is it gives you a space for upgrades, and it ups the amount of blood you can put into the infuser, which increases the amount of recipes you can put through the infuser as well. And with this upgrade space, you can choose whether to put the Promise of Velocity or the Promise of Productivity into there, since there's only one spot. Productivity lowers the amount of blood that's used per recipe, whereas Velocity speeds up how long it takes, or speeds up the process. So put this in and it's a shorter period of time. The higher tier promises you put in, the more spots for upgrades you have. So with a Promise of Tenacity tier 3, you can have 640,000 millibuckets of blood, plus 8 Promises of Velocity and 4 Promises of Productivity, or 4 Promises of Velocity and 8 Promises of Productivity. I personally would do 8 Promises of Velocity because that means it'll go really, really fast. And the thing is, with the Promises of Tenacity, you don't need multiple. So when I first started doing this, I didn't realize that it wasn't that I needed a Promise of Tenacity tier 1 for every single recipe. So I made like 2 of them and then was like, cool. I thought they were consumed. That's not the case. These upgrades are not consumed at all. They stay with the machine unless you obviously break the machine, in which case it goes into your inventory. Promises of Velocities are really cheap. They're just the Iron Promise Acceptor, the tier 0 Bowl of Promises, and the block of redstone. Promise of Productivity, same thing, except instead of redstone, it's lapis lazuli. Promise of Tenacity Tier 2 is basically the same thing, except instead of an iron promise acceptor, you need a gold promise acceptor, which is just putting a block of gold through the blood infuser instead. Tier 1, Bull of Promises, which is when you put the dusted Bull of Promises through the blood infuser with a Promise of Tenacity 1 upgrade in it, and an Ender Pearl. Then the Promise of Tenacity 3 requires a Diamond Process Acceptor, which is a block of diamond going through the blood infuser. The Bull of Promises Tier 2, and an Eye of Ender. And that gives you the Promise of Tenacity Tier 3. And those are all of the upgrades you could potentially need for the blood infuser. Next up, I'm going to go over the blood chests real quick. Again, you need a blood infusion core, and I just used some oak planks, not a specific kind of plank you need. And then you put it all together to make a blood chest. This blood chest obviously needs blood in it. And here you can here you can repair your gear using blood. A colossal blood chest does the same thing on a larger scale. This you can also use promises on, and that will upgrade the amount of blood used plus how fast it repairs. And this is super easy to make. You just use reinforced undead planks, and the colossal blood chest remote, for lack of a better term, just requires some reinforced undead planks and another blood infusion core. And then you just make a 3x3 block, leaving a space open in the middle, right there, and obviously a space on the side where you want it facing, where you want the chest facing. And next up is the Sanguinary Environmental Accumulator. Now this is not exactly beginner friendly, but I'm putting it at the end of this video because I know I struggled with it, so maybe you are as well. So let's just hop right in. So for the Sanguinary Environmental Accumulator, it's a lot of the stuff we've already seen before, stuff we already have. So the cobblestone, the blocks of iron, the blood infusion core, check, check, check. But the two new things are the Environmental Accumulation Core and the Materialized Vengeance Essence. The only way to get the Environmental Accumulation Core is by destroying one of these environmental accumulators. It takes a while, but it is possible. You just take your pickaxe or paxel and just destroy it. Well, that was a bad example, but you get my point. You destroy one of those environmental accumulators, which you can find all over the world, and you will get the core. Next thing is the Materialized Vengeance Essence. Now this itself isn't too difficult. All you need is crushed dark gem surrounding Vengeance Essence. Now this is the difficult one, because you need to make yourself a Vengeance Ring. Again, that in itself is not difficult. All you need is crushed dark gems and iron. Bada bing, bada boom. You then put that. You can put that in you can put that in your curio spot, but you don't have to. You can just leave it in your inventory. That works too. I found that out the hard way. And then the next, but not necessarily necessary item is the Vengeance Focus, which is the same exact recipe as the Vengeance Ring, except you need a Vengeance Ring to go in the middle. So I would recommend just making 2 of them, and then using one for the Vengeance Focus. You don't need it to get the Vengeance Essence, but it is helpful because this freezes the mobs in place so they aren't constantly running from you as you're fighting them. But what is necessary to fight the Vengeance Spirits is the Piercing Vengeance Focus, which requires a Vengeance Focus. So again, you gotta make 2 of these. So I guess you gotta make 3 Vengeance Rings if you want the Vengeance Focus as well to fight the mobs. Yep, the Vengeance Focus, some popped chorus fruit, which is just chorus fruit in a furnace, blood orbs, which we'll cover in a second, and end crystals. End crystals, again, super simple, just some glass surrounding an Eye of Ender and a gassed tear. But going back to those blood orbs, all you gotta do is throw the empty orb in, and it'll take 150 seconds. Actually shorter because we have the promises of velocity in there, so whatever the math works out to be, it won't take long. And you do need at least a tier 1 promise of tenacity. And then you get a blood orb, and you need to do that 2 times. And then you put that all together to make a Piercing Vengeance Focus, and you just hold it down. Hold right click to make it work. But yeah, that should be everything we need to get the Vengeance Essence we need. So let's hop into survival and get that Vengeance Spirit. So we have the Vengeance Ring on, so we'll be able to see the Vengeance Spirits. We just gotta find a mob. Doesn't matter if it's a chicken, a cow, a pig. And here we have a slime ball. So we're gonna try and kill it. Okay. See how it's leaving some Vengeance Spirits? So they can hurt too. So let's try freezing them in place. Freezing them in place is really good for putting them into chests. Oh, and there we got a Vengeance Essence right there. Just gonna try and get rid of these guys. Ah! What just hit me? I don't know what just hit me. Alright, yep. Sweet, we got 2 Vengeance Essence from 1 slime. Do not do this in a mob farm. It takes way too long and you won't be able to get the Vengeance Essence from it. So let's go back to home base and work it out from there. Alright, now that we have the 2 Vengeance Spirits, we can make 2 materialized Vengeance Essence. And with that, we can make the Sanguinary Environmental Accumulator. Now this accumulator was very confusing at first for me. You can also put upgrades in here, and it'll make it go faster, but really what you need, so what you gotta do is you gotta make a weather container, which is just a glass bottle, a dark gem, and some sugar. Throw it in, and it'll take a second. Again, some promises of velocity will go a long way. And that gives you whatever the current weather is. Since it's sunny right now, my weather container is my only sunshine. So now any recipes that need my only sunshine, we're set. But I don't know when the next time it's going to rain. And say it doesn't rain for a good couple days, how am I supposed to get the rainy weather container, the rainy day weather container, if it doesn't rain? Well, EvilCraft has thought of this. All you gotta do is take the weather container with my only sunshine in it, put 2 water buckets next to it, and that makes the rainy day. Now you're probably like, Watson, the thing I've been stuck on is Thunderstruck. There's no way, there's no possible way that EvilCraft has a Thunderstruck recipe. In which case, you'd be wrong. But if you guessed that they did, you'd be right. Because over here, Thunderstruck is just the My Rainy Day weather condition, or weather container, plus 2 glowstone dust, and boom! You got Thunderstruck, which will help you make the lightning grenades you need for the lightning bombs, which you need for the All the Mod Star. So I will correct myself earlier. The materialized vengeance essence isn't what goes in the middle for the Sanguinary environmental accumulator. It is the Garmonbozia, which I'm sure I'm not pronouncing right, but I'm sure it's fine. And the way that you make Garmonbozia is you just put the materialized vengeance spirit, or materialized vengeance essence, in the blood infuser with at least a tier 1 promise of tenacity, and bada bing, bada boom, you're set. But yeah, that's everything you need to know to begin EvilCraft. If there's any questions, any comments, anything you need to say, be sure to put it in the comments section down below. And if you like this video or it helped you out at all, feel free to like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!